Turkey season's right around the corner, and I am setting up my turkey bow and a couple little tweaks to how I normally shoot it to better my success in the turkey woods, because turkeys are a little bit different. There's a couple little tricks that you can do, especially to your arrow setup along with your bow, to just have better success in the woods, because it is a little tricky shooting turkeys with bows sometimes. You got to really make sure that everything is fine-tuned. Last year, I used one of these guys, Magnus. I think this is the Magnus Bullhead Dock, dead on contact. There's a lot of different ones out there, but pretty much it's just a big fixed blade broadhead that, of course, when you shoot them in the head, they don't make it very far. And with those, you have to use some sort of big fletching. So this was my setup last year, is some custom flu arrows and cut to full length, or I guess not cut. You need them at full length because you need the broadhead to be way out in front of your sight, away from your hands, because it's a big broadhead and you can't have it all up in your rest. I will know on some fletching standpoint, you really can't run it with a simple blazer or something like this because it needs a lot of steerage. You could potentially do a 4-fletch with a simple blazer like this, but I would really recommend picking up some flu feathers, or I even have, these are some Ozark, just some other feathers to help just with steering. So you can see that that's a little bit bigger feather on there, and you could 4-fletch it. You also potentially could do a bigger like shield cut. This is a 3.5 X vein. You could 4-fletch this, put a pretty good left helical on if you're running zebra bowstrings, and you would be in pretty good shape. But what I like to do, and we'll fletch one up to show you guys, is the bigger flus, because you can really see, it's almost like a lighted knock. You can just see them all the way, especially with some lower poundage. Set your bow at 60-65 pounds, and it's a lot of fun doing that. So let's get one of these fletched up. So another thing is, I like to run a little bit stiffer arrow than you normally would, even at a little bit lower poundage, because you're running a stock arrow length with it's just a lot of drag, and it's better to have a stiffer arrow for a little bit better arrow flight with just everything going on. Big broadhead, big fletchings, a little bit stiffer arrow, and you're shooting really close distances. So I'm running a 300 spine VAP TKO on this. So this will be really solid for the setup. So I have my flu feathers right here, and I like to customize these just a little bit. They're a little bit long when you flip open your rest. Sometimes it gets cut on it. So I'm just gonna do some custom work on these. I'm gonna lay all 3 of them out, and then I'm gonna chop the ends a little bit like that. And then I'm just gonna run here and just cut them down just a little bit, using a normal Bitzenberger, and essentially you fletch them like normal, but maybe just a little bit of extra glue. Drop it in, and it's a big fletch, so I like to give it a little bit of extra time. So there we go, one flu completed. And you know, if you find out that, you know, towards the front, these are hitting your rest a little bit more, there's nothing wrong with just taking your scissors again and just trimming it up. So if you're gonna go about it a little bit more traditionally and use a regular broadhead and shoot them in the body, what I really recommend is using some sort of big expandable broadhead, because even though a turkey seems like it's big, it's actually, its vitals on the inside are not much bigger and arguably the same size as their head is. So it's really good to still use a big expandable broadhead like a Grim Reaper. We have a NAP Killzone here, or this is probably my personal favorite, is like a Mega Meat like this, a big 3-blade, just to allow you to have a little bit more cutting on contact when it comes to shooting them in the vitals. So a couple things when it comes time to transition into turkeys, and one is, of course, my limb legs. Engage limb legs are huge when it comes to ground blind hunting, just hunting on the ground. Having your arrow knocked, ready to go, having your bow always at the ready is huge. Number 2 is the new stabilizer. So if you're doing ground blind hunting, you know, you're in some really tight spaces. So instead of having to swap it out, or I've even had to take them off before, now all you can do if you're in a ground blind is you can scooch it in a little bit so that you actually have clearance when you're shooting out of blinds and out of different windows. You just have clearance so you're not gonna bump into anything. The next thing is when I'm shooting turkeys with a bow, I really like to drop my poundage a little bit. And one reason of that is you just don't need a lot of poundage to shoot a turkey. And then next is a lot of times if you have turkeys running into the decoys, they're at full strut, they're moving around, their heads are bouncing around, you're at full draw for a longer amount of time, most of the time. So I like to switch out my switch weight mods with, I'm running 75 pounds right now. Swapping to 60 or 65 is like not a problem for turkey hunting. So I like to do that just to make it a little bit easier because you can. Okay, so we're outside now. We have a pillow, an old pillow hung up with a little dot in the middle of it. So what I like to really do is start at 10 yards, and I roughly am sighted in for 20 yards right here. So we're gonna be close, but I like to shoot turkeys at like 10 to 15 yards when doing this setup, set the decoys up right close to the blind. So we're gonna get sighted in at 10 yards and then maybe check at 15 yards, see where we're at. It'll probably be just an inch or two low. But I like to practice also with my limb legs on. Practice like you play, I like to say. We have our fletchings going all the way up to the rest. That's why I cut them so that when you draw back, there's not obstructions or anything. And your feathers, if you do this style, they're gonna be oversized, but it's fine because these feathers, they are so forgiving that they can actually just touch all of your cables and everything, and it's gonna be perfectly fine. It's not gonna affect the flight. So here we go, first shot on the pillow. Okay, it bounced right off of it, but it left the impact. Bam, that's actually not bad at all. So this is why on a pillow is really great, because it doesn't ruin your broadhead. You can use like a practice broadhead and you can still see the impact from it right there. So that's actually not bad at all. I might have to switch my left and rights a little bit, but overall, that's not bad. So that is gonna be my setup this turkey season. A big broadhead in the front, big flu-flus in the back, along with all of the Mathews accessories. So hopefully that was helpful. Make sure you get out in the woods, bring your bow, and have some fun this spring.